Hi, Ibrahim. It's such a pleasure to have you with us today.
Hi, Yasmin. Thank you for inviting me to join. It's wonderful to be here.
Thank you. Ibrahim, you are a man of many talents and many successes. You've managed to create a business and a fund that has impact not only in financial returns, but doing good for the world. You have such an amazing story. Can you tell us a little bit about how you created your company Full Cycle and the impact it's having today?
Yeah, gladly. So I used to be a scuba diver. Because I was a scuba diver, I got to see firsthand the deterioration and the quality of the marine life. And that really broke my heart. When I moved to the US, I became a serial entrepreneur and I built and sold several companies. Then I became a technology investor. I did very well in fiber optics, but accumulating wealth on a planet that's dying didn't seem like the most logical use of a human life. So I started to focus my attention. I wasn't an NGO person. I wasn't a nonprofit person. I wasn't a government person. I was a private sector person. I knew how to build companies. I knew how to invest. So I wanted to take those talents and direct them towards solving probably the biggest crisis humanity's ever encountered, which is maintaining the life support system of the only planet that we know contains life and contains us. So, and I knew that the scale of the problem was so large that you couldn't do it without it being very profitable, because things that are very profitable cross the ideological argument, because people invest for the financial returns, and some people care about the mission, some people don't, and you need everybody to create the level of scale that we need to create to solve this problem. Because most people don't realize that climate change is actually, or addressing climate change is probably the biggest investment opportunity in human history, because everything has to be upgraded. See, if you think about it, modern civilization is built on systems: water systems, energy systems, transportation, food, waste. These are all systems. And these systems were developed in the 19th and 20th century, and they're the underpinnings of modern civilization. They allow us to do the things we take for granted, which to live our life as modern global citizens. But these systems were never designed with the thought that there's a carbon cycle on the planet that needs to reconcile itself, or else you get this leakage of atmospheric greenhouse gases that since the Industrial Revolution have created this warming effect that's now accelerating, because we have more atmospheric greenhouse gases than the Earth can absorb. And I can get into the detail of it, but we'll save that for another day. So everything has to be upgraded. And you're talking about trillions of dollars a year worth of investable capital in this opportunity for decades to come. So, I decided to launch a fund called Full Cycle for obvious reasons, given the name. And the purpose of the fund isn't just to invest in the right mature technologies that are going to replace these old dirty technologies that we are currently operating on. It's designed to also accelerate the deployment of these technologies worldwide, because climate change is a race against time, right? Like, we don't have all the time in the world. We have to do this in a condensed time frame, or else we're going to have a lot of geopolitical instability, a lot of food and water insecurity, a lot of suffering around, all the most expensive real estate in the world, which is oceanfront real estate,
which is already happening in certain areas.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So there's so much happening. And so we need to factor in a new model, a new financial model that accelerates the rollout of the right mature climate critical technologies, which is what Full Cycle does. And we've been doing this strictly since 2013. And we are also accelerating because obviously now the world understands the problem. It's so interesting. Sometimes when I run into climate deniers, I tell them, listen, don't listen to me. I'm a guy who's benefiting. So maybe there's some sort of potential bias there. You know who you need to ask? You need to go ask insurance companies. So it's interesting because insurance companies, they deal with risk. Their whole model is based on risk. And you know what? Actuaries, these are the ones that calculate risk. You know what they consider the highest risk to their business ahead of terrorism, ahead of cyber attacks, ahead of climate change?
Wow.
Yes. So
Wow.
the world has changed. It's now a matter for the market, for investors, for consumers, for everybody just to understand that the market has changed and start changing behavior, changing investment patterns, changing deployability of capital, those patterns like prioritizing where we put our money.
Mhm.
I make little jokes sometimes that are maybe inappropriate. I tell people, listen, it's like, I know we are enamored with technology, but it's probably more important to stabilize the life support system of the planet before we make sure that our fridge talks to our microwave.
True.
Like, before we have a drone company delivering chocolate
Makes sense.
brownies to our house. We have priorities, and right now we need to take a step back as a civilization, stabilize the foundation, and finally live in harmony with the biosphere, just like every other creature. Not having to sacrifice lifestyle. No, just use technologies and use adaptive measures to balance our coexistence with nature, and then go ahead and have brownies delivered to you by drones or whatever it is that you want to do. That's fine. In the meantime, we have a bigger problem to solve.
Yeah. No. That makes perfect sense. But I wanted to ask you, why is there this perception that doing anything green, even investing in green technology or eco-friendly investments, is always more expensive or not as profitable? Why is there this
Perception.
And I mean, from what you're saying, it's actually the opposite.
Yeah, because these things change very quickly. So I lived during the dot-com bomb or dot-com crash of the early 2000s. And now the second iteration, look how big it is. We are able to have this conversation because of Zoom, which is one of the most profitable companies in history, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes things take the first iteration of them, maybe isn't perfect, maybe the market's a little too exuberant. And then the second iteration takes off and becomes normal. So that's the same thing with clean green technologies. Clean Tech 1.0 was a bust. Clean Tech 2.0 is going to be the biggest, most profitable investment in human history.
Wow.
So you want to hear a cool, interesting statistic? In 2013, the most valuable company in the whole world was ExxonMobil.
Wow.
Now, ExxonMobil isn't even in the top 40 most valuable American companies.
Really? So what happened? What changed?
Oil became less and less significant. It's now that didn't happen to BP, didn't happen to Shell. Why? Because they invested in a lot of renewable technologies. In fact, what's more valuable today than ExxonMobil?
Yeah.
The electric utility of Florida called Nextera, and all they use is wind power.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So now a wind power utility is more expensive than ExxonMobil. One day we'll probably talk about ExxonMobil the same way we talk about Blockbuster and Kodak.
That would be amazing. Yeah, I hope I live to see that. That would be very cool.
No, but change happens rapidly. Change usually takes slower than we think it's going to catch on. But once it catches on, it changes the world faster than we think it ever could.
And since you started investing in clean green technologies, was it always a success for you from the beginning, or did you have a trial and error phase? Did you have to find out what's the best way to do it?
No investor bats 100%. Warren Buffett, the most famous investor in the world, bats somewhere north of 60%. And when you do that, you end up with a very successful portfolio. And that's how you do it. I'm probably been luckier than most because I just by the nature of a little bit of luck, a little bit of intuition, plus because I was an entrepreneur. When you make your money as an entrepreneur, you see entrepreneurs, who has what it takes and who doesn't. So that gave me an advantage. Yeah. So I always over allocated to what ended up being winners and under allocated to what ended up being losers. So dollar for dollar, I ended up doing really well. As a percentage, I'm no better than Warren Buffett. A percentage of investments, better than Warren Buffett.
Well, it's pretty cool to be like Warren Buffett.
I mean, anywhere in that neighborhood is fine. Yes.
If we can give advice to people who are, who have the money to invest or who are starting their own business, what advice could you give to people who want to make whatever their business in more green, be able to have a social impact? Because I think it would be such a great thing for the world if everybody could make money and also have some kind of a social impact doing it.
There's different pools of capital, right? There's like professional investors, whether they're family offices or institutions, endowments, pension funds, sovereign wealth funds. Those I attest are already using ESG, environmental sustainable governance metrics, as a lens to investing. So they already know, it's not news to them, that if you don't factor in these risks, you end up underperforming your counterparts who are implementing those filters. So that's a given. So if you're, as any investor who's entering the market, just keep in mind that in a world where climate is becoming destabilized, that is a legitimate factor. Investments don't live in virtual space, they live in reality. So they are affected by increasing insurance prices, by bankruptcies of insurance companies because of extreme weather events. They are affected by real estate that's uninsurable because of extreme fire events and extreme ocean and sea rise levels. There's governance issues where, we now know that, boards that have more female representation and more people of color representation do better because they have a broader understanding of the market overall than a board made up just of older men who have limited life experience. They have one point of view. We need more point of views to have a more robust understanding of the market. So keep all of these factors in mind. And what we do in our household and our businesses is just so we can also sleep better at night. Like, yes, we need to have personal integrity as well, because we know, hey, we are part of nature. We're not separate from nature. So when we use a plastic straw, and we throw it away, we now know there is no away. We live in a closed sphere in the middle of space. It's not like it gets put in a rocket ship and sent to the sun. It still exists on Earth, and it's going to exist here for thousands of years. So it may be out of sight. And for a long time, it was out of sight and out of mind. But now we see it. It's killing all the ocean animals. It's making our land, uninhabitable because it's full of landfills. And then people go and cities grow and they have to build over these landfills. And these landfills emit all kinds of gases that even the government says, oh, it's safe now. No, it's not. It's not safe. It's going to be emitting all these toxic gases for hundreds of years. Who wants to live on top of a landfill? Who wants their kids to grow their respiratory systems and their endocrine systems and their whatever, all their physical systems breathing all that toxic fumes? I don't.
Yeah. But it's a bit daunting, though. Do you think if enough people get involved, we can have a real impact? Or is it like our part of the world where there's so many of these landfills everywhere?
It's already happening. And remember, when the world notices that the most successful companies are the ones that are implementing these types of behavior, everybody chases profit.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the most successful 4x multiple rise this year is Tesla. So people are looking at that. This is not, everybody's enamored. Everybody's talking about electric cars. And when you think that way, it starts to change your thinking and your behavior. With that said, thank you so much for coming in to talk to me.
But we ended on a positive note that profit is going to steer social impact, which is great.
Yeah.
Take care.
Okay, bye.
Bye.